The league as a whole has suffered more for Caitlyn Clark being injured, ironically, than Caitlyn Clark has suffered from Caitlyn Clark being injured. Nearly a grand in. I actually think had Caitlyn Clark been playing, it would be nearly a grand into this game. The moment she went down, price crashed nearly 30%, plummeting to $62 a seat. But before Caitlyn Clark's season-ending injury, WNBA tickets were averaging $89.
Did one player just break the entire WNBA? Caitlyn Clark's season-ending injury didn't just sideline a superstar, it sent shockwaves through ticket sales, ratings, and even sponsorship deals. Prices for some playoff seats went from over $200 down to just $25 overnight. How does one player hold this much power over an entire league? And what happens when she disappears? Stay tuned because the collapse might be even deeper than you think.
I bought a ticket for $350 and I sat courtside at game 3 of the finals last year. So it said one ticket's costing you $461. Like that ticket for an Indiana Fever game with Caitlyn Clark is $3 grand. I paid $350. I sat courtside. Like that ticket's $2 to $3 grand for a Fever game with Caitlyn Clark.
Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. How do ticket prices for an entire league collapse in a matter of days just because one player goes down? Think about it. Just one injury, one press conference, and suddenly the numbers don't even look real anymore. Before Caitlyn Clark's injury was announced, the WNBA was in the middle of a pricing surge no one had ever seen before. An average seat in a WNBA arena was going for about $89, and that's for a normal game. If you wanted playoff tickets, those were hitting well over $200, sometimes even creeping higher depending on the team. And the Indiana Fever on the road were the hottest ticket in sports. Markets like New York, Los Angeles, and even Atlanta were seeing high demand just to watch Clark play in person. It wasn't some local effect. This was a national show traveling from city to city.
Very big chunk of the total attendance in WNBA is from the Indiana Fever. They have the second highest home attendance and teams are literally moving arenas. Fever games have obviously gone down, but I say this as well, like other teams' games are suffering big time while being one of 13 teams is scary.
Now fast forward to the announcement of her season-ending injury. The minute fans knew she wasn't stepping back onto the court, the resale sites emptied. Prices that had been climbing for months suddenly got slashed. Tickets were listed for cheap just to get them sold, and you could watch the crash happen almost overnight. That's how fragile this market turned out to be. A $200 playoff seat, hyped and hard to get a week earlier, was now barely worth $25.
The fact that one player can bring down the entire cost of the league's ticket prices by 30%, I think people are suffering, or you're massively suffering, because in the mainstream,
fans called it the biggest ticket price collapse since before Clark came into the league, and they were right. Imagine that. You've got fans who had paid hundreds of dollars for seats now, watching the value of those same seats vanish in a matter of days. And the most telling number wasn't even at the playoff level, it was in the average road game. Indiana Fever road tickets fell 71%, dropping from about $137 to just $80. Think about what that means. One player's brand wasn't just helping her own team's home arena, she was literally setting the market value for almost every WNBA city she traveled to. That's insane power for a rookie, and it showed just how dependent the league became on her spotlight.
The league as a whole has suffered more for Caitlyn Clark being injured, ironically, than Caitlyn Clark has suffered from Caitlyn Clark being injured. Because Dejanay was last year, Arike was because of the All-Star game. All of these things that people were watching and became fans of these players, the general population isn't. The league has shown that it's not doing the greatest job outside of certain teams.
But this crash didn't stop with ticket stubs. Even the All-Star game, which is supposed to be the big celebration of the best talent in the league, felt the effect. The numbers looked fine on paper at first glance. 2.2 million viewers tuned in. That sounds big, but it's actually a 36% decline from the peak numbers when Clark was in the spotlight earlier in the season. So even the one event meant to showcase the entire league dipped noticeably when she wasn't there. Here's where it gets messy. ESPN reported that ratings for certain games went up by 20% without her on the floor. And for a moment, you could believe it. The problem is, if ratings were climbing, why did the wall-to-wall media coverage practically vanish at the same time?
The WNBA and the Indiana Fever did not want people to know that Caitlyn Clark was going to be out for the season. ESPN bragging about WNBA ratings for the WNBA season. From the very day that they decided to let that go public, everything has dropped off a cliff.
Why were clips, highlights, and chatter about the WNBA suddenly harder to find outside of dedicated shows? The contradiction raises questions that nobody in the sports media really wants to answer. It suggests that one weekend or one game might have looked good on paper, but the longer story is that the momentum dried up quickly without Clark's presence. So the league that looked unstoppable a month ago suddenly feels shaky. When tickets tank this fast, sponsors get nervous.
Yeah, it's just it's a pity for the league. But at the end of the day, it's proving again Caitlyn is bigger than this league.
This is Kathy Engelberg's worst nightmare. Views on this channel, the television ratings, the interest, Thanos snapped out of existence.
They don't want to attach their brand to something unpredictable. When broadcasts fall off, networks hesitate to give premium slots. And when fans realize the cost isn't worth it unless Clark is playing, that fan energy begins to fade too. The whole system is tied to her. Ticket revenue, media hype, corporate deals, it all circles back to one player. And that's the real weakness exposed here. It isn't that Clark is too important. It's that the WNBA hasn't built a wide enough base of stars to distribute the attention. Instead of selling the league, it's been selling Caitlyn Clark. The crash in ticket prices and ratings painted that picture more clearly than anything else could. But if you think this story ends with cheap tickets and lower ratings, you're missing the bigger shift. The way media deals react, the way sponsors recalculate, and the way the league tries to recover, that's where this ripple effect becomes even more dramatic. This whole season showed how fragile the WNBA really is.
I think the Mystics are a fun team. I don't think they have fans. The Wings don't have fans. The Sky, in fairness, the Sky do have fans, but it's a much smaller percentage than people think. It is the severe lack of attendance and people going and people caring about the Wings, the Sky, the Dream.
The league built its momentum on a single superstar, and the moment she was gone, the entire foundation cracked. The record crowds, the massive prices, the extra media shine, it all collapsed way too fast. So here's the question. Is this finally the wake-up call? Does the league start investing in building multiple stars? Or is it always going to rise and fall on Caitlyn Clark's shoulders? Because when she comes back, her return might not just matter for the Fever, it could decide the future of the entire WNBA.